Welcome back to another Fishing with Leaf episode. In today's video, we'll be talking about my favorite trout fishing lures of all time. There will be plenty of pictures of the lures in the packaging so you guys have a better idea of what it looked like in store. And with that said, let's get right into it. Starting with my personal favorite spinner this year, the 3/16 ounce Blue Fox Vibrax mid-depth silver size 2 spinner with superior castability as well as a range of successful retrieve speeds. Not much in my opinion beats this spinner. This spinner has caught me the most trout in a day as well as the most trout ever, and the most trout I caught in a day with this spinner is 21. A problem with these lures is as soon as the sun comes out they kind of stop working, so ideal times to fish this lure are between early morning and then dusk and dawn, so like later in the sunset as well. This is one of the only hard baits that worked for me this summer, and it's carried all the way through the entire fall season. So seasonal range would definitely be summer all the way through fall, and then another great time to fish any hard bait would be early spring, so spawning season for the trout. So early spring to late spring is kind of like the area where they spawn, though the summer bite does slow on most hard bait lures. That makes it a good idea to start using more sitting baits like power bait, worms, and bread as well. There's also a 1/4 ounce mid-depth size 3 gold option for targeting larger fish. It also creates more noise than the smaller lures. The lure has very bright flashes and incredible castability. Though I've caught range of sizes of fish on this spinner, the best time to fish it seems to be before the sun comes out. My favorite time gap is kind of where you can still see outside, so it's not like pitch black, you can still see when you're tying stuff, but the sun hasn't risen. Though this size of lure catches me less fish overall, it's great for targeting larger fish and also producing more noise if you're in murky water. And it shines very, very bright, though it can be a little overwhelming for other fish, so that's why I tend to use the smaller size and also go earlier in the day. I'd use this size of lure during spawning season when the fish are more aggressive, and the seasonal range is about the same as the silver one. These lures can be found online at Walmart, Cabela's, Bass Pro, whatever fishing stores you have available. And that sums up the Blue Fox Super Vibrax spinner. Next is the Blue Flax Vibro Minnow spin. The spinner blade will say size 1, it will just have a little 1 on it, just like this. The lure is basically a hard body lure with a spinner action. I found most success with the lure in early spring months. The color pattern on the actual fish body is not important to the fish, but I recommend the rainbow trout pattern. A pro of this lure is that the spinner blades are smaller, and that actually makes it look more like a minnow, because as you would expect, minnows have little small tails. So if you had a big spinner like that size 3 Vibrax, it wouldn't be convincing to the fish. Detecting a bite is very similar to any ordinary inline spinner, and the hook's a deadly sharp. This lure is perfect for cast and retrieve because it's just heavy enough to get out where you need it, and it's not overwhelmingly large for the trout. This lure can also be found online as well as Walmart and any fishing stores you guys have near you. Moving on to my next favorite trout spinners of all time, the Panther Martin inline spinner cannot be beat for most river creek situations. It also makes a great cast and retrieve lure as well because of its weight, and with Panther Martins you can get smaller lures out further. My very favorite size for the cast and retrieve is definitely a size 4. Size 6s work just as well. The action on the spinners is very unique because the blade doesn't hang off of the side like the other spinners that I've been talking about. Instead, they sit on top of a bead and they're threaded through the wire. The castability is great and the vibration is as well. My two favorite color patterns, which have proven successful for me, are the black with the yellow dots and the gold spots, as well as the yellow with the red spots and the silver blade. In fact, my PB rainbow trout has actually been caught by that very spinner. It was 3.95 pounds and I caught it earlier this March, about near sunset. Seasonally, you'll want to fish this early spring to late spring as well as later in the fall. The best time to fish the spinner is just like all the other spinners I mentioned. You want to fish it earlier in the morning. You want to fish it before the sun comes up, and then you want to fish it just before the sun comes down. You can even fish it a little bit after the sun goes down because it's still light outside. The lure can be found online, Walmart, they can be found on Cabela's, Bass Pro, whatever you guys have. And there are so many color options for you guys to try, so don't be shy to try them all. see what works best for you, whether you have the muddier water conditions, see what works best for you guys. The next lure is the 1/4 ounce Rooster tail spinner. There are many colors available and they all work great. This lure is actually pretty well known in the fishing community, but this is because of its simple and effective design. My favorite color to use is just the white with the silver blade. I lean towards slightly larger sizes with this lure because it's not as effective as casting as the Panther Martins and the other lures that I mentioned. It has a much lighter body. You can use those lighter ones for creeks and streams where you don't have to cast as far, but like if you're using cast and retrieve, it's much wiser to invest in like a 1/4 ounce one. So yeah, great places to fish these are rivers, creeks, and streams. You can cast and retrieve them at local ponds or lakes, off boats. This lure can also be found online. You can find them at Walmart, and you can pick them up at your local fishing shops. And since there's so many colors and sizes, you might as well try a few of them because it doesn't hurt to see which one you can fish the best with. The last spinner I'm bringing up today is France's original, regarded as the world's #1 lure, the Mepsagila. This lure can be fished in an endless variety of ways, as well as catch a vast array of fish species, being very popular among trout anglers because of its versatility in many different fishing situations like rivers, creeks, streams, and lakes. My favorite size is the size 2 with the brass blade. This lure is capable of catching many fish given the right circumstances. As I said, my favorite season for all trout lures is definitely the early spring season during the spawning when they're less shy and they'll go out and attack basically anything that swims in the water. And my favorite times are definitely early morning. The lure can be found online at Walmart's and all your local fishing stores. And there are so many different types of Mep spinners, so don't be afraid to try some of the other ones. The next sort of group of lures I like to fish with, especially during spawning season, are the Rapala countdowns. Named this because they supposedly sink at a rate of 1 foot per second. It's an ideal bait to fish with given that you have the ability to gauge where it is in the water. The lure has a very smooth swimming-like action, but you can create your own interesting actions with stops and twitches. My favorite pattern is the Rapala CD5 with the silver and the black back. My second favorite being the gold with the black back. That's going to be a CD7. The best time absolutely to fish these lures would definitely be the early to late spring. This is because the spawning season, they're much more aggressive than later. When they'll still bite later, they do not bite as much. You just can't beat spawning season when fishing with hard baits. Also, don't be afraid to try other colors like the brown trout pattern or the mustard muddler pattern. The best time to fish all the Rapalas would definitely be the mornings and then the late evenings. So from around 3 p.m. to 5 or when the sun starts setting. I have a little less luck in the early afternoon, like 12 to 2 about. And that goes for most lures as well. But this lure can be found online, Walmart, and just like any other store that you have available for you. Another lure to try if you find you like the Rapalas or you want to try something different would be the CD5 Countdown Scatter Wrap. It's virtually the same as the last one, but the lip shape, instead of being a straight down with a little bowl in the center, it's instead going to be like a curved bowl. It's going to be pointing out a little more, and that's going to give it a faster, more aggressive, violent action, and it's going to look a little more like an injured bait fish or kind of minnow, which is perfect for spawning season, but not just for trout, also for white bass. And this lure can also be found in the same places as mentioned before. The last Rapala in this episode I'm talking about is the F5. This is a floating lure, and it requires you make your own action to not only keep it under the water, but also give it a little bit more of a twitching action, something more of an injured baitfish action. It swims just great. If you put it in the water, you'll see that it has the swimming action, but you do need to keep tension on your line in order to keep the bait underwater, unless you want to let it float, do stops, and then bring it back down. Whatever works for you guys, your actions, experiment with that. But the best color, in my opinion, is the gold with the black back. That's going to be a F5. There's also a few other color options, including the rainbow trout pattern, which is my second favorite pattern. These lures also work best during spawning season, especially because they're a little more scary. Because if you're at the top of the water, something's just jumping down there, they might get scared of that. But in spawning season, they're actually looking for that kind of stuff. They're looking for that kind of action. They're looking to go and chase something like that. A setback to these lures is the casting distance. They are much lighter, so you want to use a pole or a rod that can cast much further. And let's say you're ultra light or even like a medium heavy, because like the control's a little harder, your accuracy is a little less. I'd go for something like just a basic medium, maybe a 6'6", and a higher quality reel that can kind of send those lighter lures out there. Though you can also pair a few little split shot sinkers a little bit far up the back, maybe like 3 or 4 feet. I've done it before. Earlier this February, I was experimenting with the sinker distances, and I found that to be successful, I put the split shots like at least 3 feet up above the lure, and that will give you better casting distance, even if you have a smaller rod. With these lures, I just recommend having a lot of fun with them, trying a lot of new actions and stuff, see what works best for you wherever you are. And again, this lure can be found the same way the other ones are, online, Walmart. The next lure is the Acme Castmaster. This lure is an absolute beast. I've been able to catch up to 30 trout in a couple hours, given the right time of year and the time of day. Though the time of day doesn't affect it as much, the time of year does. My favorite time to fish this lure is during the spawning season especially. That's my absolute favorite time to fish most lures, including this lure. Early morning, late afternoon, like 3 p.m. to 5, or as late as you can go before the sun gets too low. This is a very versatile lure. It can be fished in lakes, ponds, streams. It can be trolled. It can be cast and retrieved. There's many different methods you can fish it, many different places you can fish it because of the size range that you can get, and as well as the color range and the weight range. In my opinion, this is the most superior trout fishing spoon. But this lure can also catch other species like white bass, largemouth bass. You can catch salmon. You can catch many different types of fish with it. My favorite size is the 1/8 ounce and the 1/4 ounce. I go for the silver most of the time because that's kind of the color that works no matter what. I experiment with other colors when I know that it's going to work. Like spawning season is the best time to experiment with the colors. And my favorite way to cast the 1/8 ounce is you want to cast it really far out. You can cast it really, really far. And once you cast it far, you just want to let it sink like 3 seconds, like kind of just count. And then once it's like about 3 seconds far deep, you want to start reeling very slowly with the 1/8 ounce. The 1/8 ounce is super light. It sinks pretty slow. And you can just reel like 1, 2, and I like to cast straight, then I like to cast just at an angle, and an angle, and an angle. For casting and retrieve, you just want to cover as much water as possible. And yeah, with the 1/4 ounce, you're going to want to do the same thing. You're going to want to let it cast, maybe let it sink for 2 seconds, and then reel a little bit faster than before. But you want to keep both reeling speeds at a constant rate. You don't want to do any twitching or action or something like that. All you have to do is aim the rod tip down, make sure that it's pointing at the lure, reel nice and slow. With the 1/4 ounce, you're going to want to reel a little faster, and with the 1/8 ounce, you're going to want to reel really slow. There are many different color variations, some of my other favorites being the half blue, half silver, and the perch pattern. This lure can be found online at the Acme website. You can find them on Walmart. You can find them at most sporting good fishing stores, like outdoor stores. And another different spoon type trolling lure to try is the Jake Spin Lure. You're going to want like a 1/4 ounce. I like the gold and the silver. Those both look the best. You can catch a wide variety of fish, including lakers, salmon, pike, bass, walleye, and even muskie. Just make sure to use a snap swivel, because if you don't use a snap swivel, you have a pretty good chance of losing the lure. The last lure I'm going to talk about today is the Pistol Pete. This innovative and effective lure can be fished on normal spinning rods. The little spinners on the top create vibrations similar to a fly's wing beats. They're about the size, and they have colors similar to flies. This is trout's primary food source, so this is a great lure to try early in the morning, because that's when they're going to be out there looking for flies. And the cool part is you don't need a fly rod or a fly reel or any kind of fly combo to fish with it. They can't, however, be fished alone, which means you can't just cast a little Pistol Pete out, because they're like this big. They're just tiny little flies, essentially, with a little spinner on them. They require added weights with a swivel, so I'd like put a swivel on it and then put weights. Or as a substitute to weights, I'd put a swivel and then I'd put like a 3/4 filled bubble float. And in both cases, I recommend putting the leader below the swivel at about 3.5 or even 4 feet. The secret sauce right now actually isn't any of the lures that I mentioned. It's actually just some cheap hot dog buns. I like to get a nice little piece of hot dog bun. I get about a treble hook a little bit bigger than like a small because the tiny ones, they can swallow them better. I'm going to try and get back, see if it can focus for you. You want like a nice little treble hook, and then like probably about 3 feet up from that, you're going to want a nice little weighted bobber. You can get these from Como Tackle. I'll have a picture. That will allow you to get the piece of bread far out, but the way I've been fishing it, you can literally cast it like 3 feet out at least and still catch trout. This is for pond fishing. I don't know about river fishing or creek fishing, but if you're a local pond fishing for trout and you want to try out something new, and maybe you're not having as much luck on your lures, definitely go and try the bread. I just got some 88-cent hot dog buns at Walmart. Try it if you haven't already. For those of you who reached the end of the video, I hope you guys found it helpful. If you did, leave a comment down below. And if there's a lure you guys use that I didn't mention in this video, definitely leave it down below in the comments for me to see, as well as let me know what you guys want to see next. If you're not yet subscribed to my channel, please subscribe and share this video with anyone who's looking to up their hard bait fishing game. And I'll see you in the next video.